What's up, everyone? Today we are talking flexibility training. This is one of the hottest topics we ever talk about, without a doubt. One of the things that you, our audience, want to know the most about. And today we're talking about dosage. How much should you stretch for best results? The answer may not be what you think. Good morning, everybody. We are back. It's Thursday. We got a big show. If we haven't met before, my name is Yanni Baumeister. Across the table from me is my brother Rad. To my left is the absolutely fabulous Phil White, physio, and behind the camera is the voice of God, Richie. Together we are Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System, where we turn driven people into athletes. If you want to know how we do it, you can learn all of our biggest insights, aha moments, and lessons from our blueprints for strength, flexibility, and fitness. They're available in the replay description on YouTube and on the podcast, and they're also available on our website. What's up, everyone? I got tongue-tied there. How good was that?
So good. Fab.
So good. Fab.
Absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
As always, you know. Love the topic. Love this topic. People think that the more you stretch, the quicker you'll get flexible, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. I thought that's what it was. And I got a lot of injuries doing it, and it certainly stifled my progress. So the question of the day is...
Oh, you got a question of the day, dear. Oh, you beat me to it.
I got it already.
Oh.
How much do you stretch, and is it working for you? Are you getting the results that you want?
Most importantly, I want to know how many times they're stretching the same muscle groups each week. Like, what's their ideal? How many times are you stretching the same stretches each week? I reckon that'll be really interesting.
And if you're now following the very well put together UMS system, maybe what were you doing just before? Before you started with it, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of
How good was the discussion? How good was the discussion yesterday that you missed? Oh, did you watch the show at all?
I missed it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Phil was cranky.
He double missed it. Yeah. He double missed it.
Double missed the show.
We went off on a tangent yesterday, but it was really good. A lot of the guys are saying it was the best show ever.
I know. I did see Vinnie Brown post a comment there. I was like, one time we're not there, and then suddenly...
do you know, I'm just curious.
Maybe I'm the problem.
I'm curious as to what people think.
No.
I was going to say this to you yesterday, Yanni, because we had a lot of people say yesterday that was one of the best shows that they've seen us do for a while. And I was thinking yesterday about what did we do differently on yesterday? And among other things, two things...
I know exactly what the answer to that is.
Well, the two things that I noticed that we did differently, one is that we threw some stones.
That's true.
We threw some stones. We never do that. We intentionally reserve ourselves like that. And the other is that we actually plugged what we do.
The reason for that is because of the interaction. So the show was so good yesterday because, guys, you interacted with us in the comments and it started a discussion and the discussion was awesome. And we had some guys on there with lots of experience who've trained with us for a long time. It was all about the discussion, and that caused us to throw some stones and plug our programs, and that's what led us in that direction. So, on that note, if you're watching the live stream, and for anyone who's on the podcast, big love to you. Anyone who's watching the replay, big love to you too on YouTube. But get yourself over to the UMS Movement Mastermind and get involved in the conversation because it is what makes the best shows. Phil's always asking you to tell us who you are and where you're watching from, and we like to know that. We like you to answer the question of the day. And has anyone typed the question of the day? I can't see it.
Yeah, Rad's got it.
Oh, really?
I've typed it. All right, so look, what we want to talk about today is, basically how much should you stretch? And this is something that I'm actually really surprised at how much is optimal for stretching, because it's just so different to what I was taught for decades. You know, when I did martial arts and when I spoke to anybody that thought they knew anything about stretching, the answer was always stretch every day. The more you stretch, the better the result you'll get. And it's definitely a really basic way of describing things, and it's turned out to be incorrect for us. And I think for a child, I think if a 7 or 8 year old said to you, how much should I stretch? I think you could probably say stretch every day and they'll get flexible, like it'll work for them. But for adults, it just doesn't work that way. And I think one of the first things you have to understand is forget the word stretching, think of the words flexibility training and mobility training.
Yeah, I was thinking with like stretching just So I am so interested in words and what it makes like us subconsciously think, and stretching does make it seem like such a mechanical model of just,
elongating.
Yeah, basically.
That's what it still does to me.
Yeah,
when I think of stretch, I think, okay, bend forward,
Yeah.
grab the foot, hold it for 30 seconds, and then change sides and repeat 3 times,
Totally.
whatever.
So it is so interesting how that does just take you into that mindset, and so it's almost like it should come up with a different word or something. But I think like mobility training is a nice way of doing it, but like
mobility
the
and flexibility. I'm going to say where I got this from. I up until I'd read Overcoming Gravity, I was still confused about what mobility was. I wasn't sure about it, and I've still seen people that are even more flexible than I am that have a different definition of it, but this definition works really well for me. So I learnt it from Overcoming Gravity, if anybody wants to check it out, by Stephen Lowe. And the difference, so mobility refers to anything that takes the joint through full range of motion. It's an umbrella term. If you do a deep squat, you're mobilizing the joints. Flexibility, so mobility is generally done at a much lower intensity. So things like a warm up or a cool down is a good example of mobility training. But it is absolutely not stretching. It is mobilizing the joint, taking the joint through full range of motion. Flexibility training is anything that is done with the intention to increase your mobility. It's generally done at a much higher intensity, and it is generally done in a way where you do sets and reps that create load that then you need to recover from. So that's the first thing that you need to understand, what the difference between flexibility and mobility is, and you might need to re-listen to that a couple of times to understand it.
That's very, very important.
Yep.
Very, very important. And I really like...
to understand the difference?
To understand the difference. And we're going to talk about how to use them now as well. But I also really like the point that Phil made, which I think is really important, which is that we need to change the language that we use. And I fall victim to this a lot too. And I spoke about this yesterday, and you alluded to it in the beginning there, where it's very different for children and adults to improve flexibility, improve strength, improve anything, because for a very long period of time, up until about the age of 27 for men and 25 for women, our bodies, every cell in our body is like it's being programmed. And the cells are constantly turning over and healing and dying and all that sort of thing. But we are a big sort of computer program. Everything's being programmed, and your body is building restrictive elements if you're not moving much, and it's building movement elements, ability elements if you are moving lots and lots. And that's why it's so important to encourage children to move a lot. But if you watch a child move around, they're being programmed, and their brain is programming the muscle systems and the nervous system, and everything's developing in that way. And if you're practicing flexibility and mobility during that period of adolescence, you're programming it into your cells. And so it's very different for someone who, even at the late teenage, early 20s years, is developing their flexibility, to someone that's trying to do it at 40 and 50. And when we were talking about Vinnie Brown yesterday, comparing himself to a much younger woman who's developed pancake quicker, it's very difficult to compare yourself when you're 51 years old to someone who's in their even 30s or early 40s, because the inhibitors that the body programs to prevent injury, to protect you from harm, which is the brain's number one priority, is to protect you and keep you healthy, to keep you surviving. If it's programming inhibitors, because you're not moving it or teaching it to be okay in those ranges of motion, it can take a long time to overrule that program, to essentially install new software into the system that allows you to go further. Mm-hmm. And so the notion that we're just stretching something is completely outdated. It needs to be abolished. The use of the term stretching should be abolished, I believe. You heard it here first.
Look at that mic drop. Phil's speechless.
Right. I mean, as someone who has been on the warpath of tendonitis, I feel like you're now feeling my pain.
So
let's abolish the word stretching.
So now that we've gone over what the difference between why we don't like the word stretching, and why you need to understand what flexibility training and mobility training is. How much should you stretch, or how much do you need to do of this stuff to get more flexible? mobility training is very useful to be done daily. But you've got to understand that when you do mobility training, like our 18-minute stretching routine or 18-minute mobility routine, which is the more updated version, it is not done with the intention to increase your flexibility, to increase your mobility. It's done to maintain and prevent loss and keep your body moving well. And you will see, if you've never done flexibility training before and you do a good mobility routine, you will see an initial improvement in flexibility and mobility. It will happen. You'll just improve because your body accesses its full range every day, and that starts to become the norm, and you'll start to feel amazing. But when it comes to the type of training that is required to achieve things like the splits or the pancake or the pike or the back bridge, or like the high levels of flexibility that a lot of people come to us for, like what we do in the Flexibility Masterclass, that requires a demand on the body, the style of training that you do, much higher load that needs recovery. And when you do that, you cannot do that stuff every day on the same muscle group. That's like saying, I mean, you could, I'll rephrase that. You could, but it would have to be at a much lower intensity, at a level of intensity that I don't think is optimal.
Yeah, and this fits really nicely into one of the online coaching members who's just asked a question this morning, Andrea Kirker, who's saying that he's posted a photo with like really quite a good middle splits, range. He's nearly all the way down to the ground, but he's saying that I hope I am right and that I will soon sink to the ground. And he's asking for any advice. And he's clearly someone who, when Rad's talking there about when you're just starting out, it's the same with strength when you get your neurological adaptations and get strength without building muscle size. It's the same with flexibility. When you're starting to do mobility work, you'll get lots of easy gains. You don't need to have like a massive stimulus to just get, if you just take your body through kind of regular range of motion, you'll feel a really big improvement. But someone like Andrea, who's now getting to the point where like that's beyond what most people can do, certainly far beyond what I can do, but he wants to get that last little kind of bit to get full middle splits. Like it takes a different approach. Like you can't just do regular frequent forcing it. You've got to treat it like a
and I believe it's at these points that one of the biggest things that you can do is level up your strength in those end ranges. Like start to do things like squatting and split squatting and weightlifting movements that are encouraging full range of movement, because I think that's one of the ways that you can really have a breakthrough in, I look at the guys that I look at who can do the splits very well, and surprisingly, some of them were bodybuilders, professional bodybuilders. But you think of like Juji Mufu on Instagram, that dude has an amazing middle split. But look how strong he is as well. He's a beast. And even when I look at that guy, that hyperbolic stretching guy in the photos, he's not a skinny dude, man. He's got some muscle on him, that guy. Yeah.
If anyone who hasn't watched any Juji Mufu videos or on photos, Instagram, treat yourself. It's a good time.
Absolutely.
He's out there, but he does some amazing...
Follow that man on social media. He is absolutely sensational. Yeah. And look, he's a very, very well-rounded individual, he has the physique of an Adonis. He's training for a bodybuilding comp at the moment, and I don't know whether it's I get the impression it's his first ever bodybuilding comp, but he also has done a lot of powerlifting, done a lot of acrobatics. He's incredible at acro, and he is so flexible. It's just so impressive to see that man move with so much muscle mass. Yeah, and then the other people that I can think of that I'm really impressed with are, I've been to see a lot, I'm fascinated with Cirque du Soleil, and I have been to see a lot of Cirque du Soleil shows, almost all of them, I don't know, I've seen about 7 of them, and there's always a couple of, some really strong looking guys who do incredible feats of strength and flexibility, and I'm always like, yeah, that's brilliant. So anyway, back to the topic of today's
for someone like Andrea
show,
who's looking to go from, we've talked about like a daily mobility practice is great for, someone who's just getting into stretching and into mobility training, not stretching.
Flexibility training. Yep.
But for someone like Ondra, what would your advice be, Rad? With because you were in that position, that same sort of level as he was.
Yep. I was there, and where I was really frustrated that I wasn't getting better from that position, and I tried doing the middle splits every day, thinking that was what was going to get me there, and that still didn't work. And then I tried forcing myself. I tried warming up and then trying to force myself to go deeper, and I tore my adductors many times. I tore them, then they healed, and then I did the same thing again, and then they healed, and I did that for ages. And I didn't know about dosage back then, but all I did, not knowing any better, was I said, man, I'm just going to try doing something different. I'm going to try stretching some different parts of my body, and I started focusing more on my glutes and a few other things. But what that did was it reduced the amount of times, the volume that I was doing on the middle splits, and within a month I got touchdown. So what should you be doing, Ondra? If you've said in your post, my active middle splits from the end of the FM workout, I'm guessing that you mean the flexibility masterclass workout. That's what I'm guessing. So the flexibility masterclass itself is a phenomenal program. If you follow that program, you are doing the things that you need to do. And as long as you get the dosage right, which means you only do the middle splits once a week in that program, but you should be doing daily mobility. You need to do mobility daily to make sure that you maintain the range that you've worked hard to achieve, and you'll find the best mobility routine in the 18-minute stretching routine or the 18-minute mobility routine. For the middle splits, definitely I prefer the 18-minute mobility routine. And really, that's about it. I mean, if we go deeper into it, what do you need to do? You need to strengthen your glutes in the end range. You need to strengthen your adductors in the end range. And you need to allow time for your nervous system to understand that this is an accessible range and it can be done easily. And one of the best ways to do that is to do loaded Cossack squats and also heavy, deep, full range squats.
Yeah, and I want to also just make a disclaimer here for people who are at that level where they're only a few inches from the floor on any stretch, especially the middle splits. There are anatomical features of the body that will make it extremely hard for certain people to make up that last couple of inches, and for some people it may not even really be possible or a viable option. But in any case, the last few inches of any mobility or flexibility feat are always going to be, of course, the most difficult.
Yeah,
it's very, very similar to the concept of getting lean. You know, if you want to step on stage as a bodybuilder and you need to get to 7% body fat or 6% body fat, getting down to 10% for most people is quite achievable. Getting from 10% to 6% is exceptionally difficult. You know.
Yeah, and what I'm about to say is kind of like an adult trying to tell a child how to be wiser and how to not make the mistakes that they made, and it never works. You know, everybody has to make their own mistakes. So I respect that what I'm about to say for some people is just not going to fly. But what I learned over the amount of effort that I put in to try to get those last 2 inches in flexibility, I now train very, very differently. And I still do flexibility training consistently, but I put far less of my time and energy into it, and I maintain I'm pretty sure that I actually maintain everything that I work towards, and I still see improvements, but with far less investment. And I think, like, from my time in training, what I always do, I reflect back and I look on the last 12 months and I think, has the time that I've invested in this given me a result that was worth that investment? And when I really look back on a couple of years of flexibility training, think about how much time I invested to maybe get an inch lower in the splits, I thought, would that time have been better invested in something else? Like, could I have achieved something better with that amount of time? And the answer for me is a very big yes. Like, like some people come here, we've got people that come here that are so flexible. And I say, what are your goals? And they say, I just want to be able to do the splits really easily. And I look at them and they're more flexible than me. And I'm like, really? Like, that's what you're here for? You want to get that 1 extra inch of the splits when you can barely squat half your own body weight, or you can't do a handstand, or you can't do a muscle up yet or anything. But the whole focus is just on getting 1 more inch.
Well, it's the concept that we spoke about yesterday and that I highlighted in the email I sent out after the show, which is that the biggest problem with the fitness industry is that most people are running towards something that they're passionate about and forgetting that by nature, in doing so, they're running away from everything else that's possible, you know. And it's very hard not to do this because it's in our nature. We don't want to be uncomfortable, therefore we are attracted to the things we're comfortable with, and that tends to mean that we overinvest our time in things that we can already do really well, you know, and underinvest our time and effort in the things that we suck at.
Yep.
And it's a big problem. It's a big problem because, you know, most gyms are set up in a way where their program is come here and we do a flexibility class here, we do a strength class here, and we do a fitness class here, and you can choose whatever you do, and we give you all the options in the world. And guess what people do? They fucking do the thing that they're doing too much of already because they're comfortable with it. And it's the thing that they don't need much of at all, and they neglect all the things that they're actually going to get a great result from.
Which is then the thing that you're going to get the most diminishing returns from.
Exactly.
Because you're already, you know, so far down that track, and if you did a little bit of the thing that you're bad at, you'd get just an outsized benefit. So.
The surprising thing is, and I experienced this firsthand for myself just recently, okay? I took some time off doing a lot of stretching, doing a lot of flexibility training, okay? And it's going to take us a while. And I focused on a few things that I was having problems with, and I focused on leveling up my max strength in the end ranges. And guess what happened? I came back and did the best flexibility training session I've done in a year. And I literally had hardly... I'd done mobility and I'd done a little bit of stuff, but I'd hardly done any intense flexibility training for about... far out, 3-4 months, I reckon, you know. And it just goes to show that quite often what you'll find is if you prioritize a bit of your time and effort on the things you suck at, you might be surprised to find that the thing you most want actually just comes, you know.
Yeah, I went through a real hard year or so when I was making this decision as to whether or not I was going to continue putting all my energy into Kung Fu or not. After having done it for 15 years or something like that, and what I was really going through in my head was I was at a realization that what I needed to do to get better than what I already was to train exceptionally hard to make that 3 or 4% improvement, and that's what you have to do when you get good at anything. There's this initial uptake of skill that really delivers a high level of result, and then you get to a point where those returns start diminishing. And the further down the path you get, the more those returns diminish. And for me, after having done martial arts for so long, I was at this point where I was looking at how much I had to train in order to get better. And I thought to myself, I've never done calisthenics before, and I've never done weightlifting before. What I would gain from that is obviously exponentially greater. And I decided to completely stop martial arts and focus on those things. And the way that my body has developed, the changes that have happened in my body has just been exceptional in the years that I made that decision. I've learned so much, and it's led to partly to the creation of the UMS. So
I think mentally as well, like not only in your body, but learning a new skill is hitting your head against a brick wall of trying to get diminishing returns on something that you have done for so long is really a challenging mental place to be in.
It's killing me.
And learning something new is just
refreshing.
Such a wonderful experience.
So refreshing, isn't it? Shall we get into some of these comments? Because we've got a lot of them.
Absolutely.
So let's have a look. Vinny Brown is saying, hi guys, great interaction. And he's saying, should I plug in the 3 sets of loaded stretching routine exercises on Monday, Thursday and Saturday with the at-home workouts? Yeah, absolutely. Based on what we told you yesterday, absolutely. Do the at-home workout stuff. That's what we told you to do. Give it a try for 6 to 8 weeks and let's see what happens, brother. Lee Clemens is saying, coming to an understanding of a difference between mobility and flexibility. Yeah, this
is a really important point to make sure that everyone really understands. And if there's one thing that you take away from this show, I think it should be that the difference in mobility and flexibility training is quite sparse. Like it's important, and you use mobility training or mobility drills or mobility routines like our 18-minute routines, our warm-ups, things like that, to either prep you or maintain or solidify your gains, and flexibility is the workout.
Yep. Tom Wood, good to have you on the show again, brother. What are you doing, mate?
2 times in a row. You're not sleeping, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
End range strength has really improved my flexibility. Yeah, amen to that. Same with me, man. It's and to see your squat, I've seen the progress on Tom's squat. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
After some serious knee injuries as well. Lee Clements is saying, already had a good pancake ability before doing the flexibility masterclass. Have learnt a painful lesson to cut back on intensity or frequency. Yeah, it's
Lee's
it's really
currently suffering
hard.
from some adductor tears by the sounds of it, and it's
Yeah, it stuffs,
you've been there.
stuffs with your head. Oh man, I've been there, and
Yeah.
that was really hard for me because in my mind I'm going, Jesus, I feel like I need to take a break from this. But then the other part of my mind's going, but everybody tells me I need to stretch more if I want to get more flexible. So if I take a break, I'm going to stop getting more flexible, and it really fucks with your head. It's really hard. Aidan Potts is saying, what up, guys? Looking forward to our physio call, Phil. Awesome. And Aidan is saying now, curious of how many in your personal members do the mobility routine on top of the regular UMS workout, strength and flexibility. I've been doing the UMS program with the flexibility masterclass and have my workouts take close to 1.5 hours. If I add in cardio, I'm struggling to find the time to do 2 hours of training. If I add the 18-minute mobility routine, what would you guys recommend? How essential is it to do the mobility routine in addition to the workout? So that's a really good question. So I would say, I can't speak for Richard's classes because he does the lunchtime and the evening classes. The lunchtime class probably has the least amount of people that stay and do the mobility afterwards because they have to get back to work. In the morning, I would say 80 to 90% of my students in the morning do the mobility routine at the end, which means that they do the UMS workout, which goes for 1 hour, and then they do a 15-minute mobility routine, which is exactly, because I literally took one of the end of the videos of the at-home workouts that we did, Aidan, on YouTube, and they do that every day, and that is a really, really, really big part about increasing your flexibility to do that daily mobility routine. But then at the same time, the way we do our UMS workouts in the class are a lot more efficient than what you guys are doing them on your own. And that is not your own fault. When you have a coach who's putting on a timer for every single thing and who's saying, all right, let's go, move now, you don't have to think so much and you just get it done. It's almost going to be impossible for you to make your workout as efficient as we do without a coach.
This is one of the things I was really going to say. If you ever come into the gym and watch the workouts going here, it's like watching a hive of bees work or ants. You know, like it is. And this is what's revolutionary about what we do and how we deliver such good results in only an hour or an hour and 10 minutes if you count the mobility at the end. It's really quite impressive, you know, and we've built this culture around efficiency, and we are Rad, Richard, and myself, and Phil as well. We're constantly looking at it and iterating how we can make things more efficient, how we can maximize the time, because the type of affluent member that we have around here, they're very heavily geared towards career, and they got to get in and out really efficiently, and they got to get their workout done.
We're in a big like central business district here, so it's
that's exactly right. And so it's like, you know, it's something to behold, and it's something that I have a real ambition to set up a live camera stream for our workouts at some point. I'd love to do it so you guys can actually see what it's like when the workouts are going in the gym here.
One of our goals is that we want to have a full-time videographer that works for us, and a part of their job would be that they would film one of these 1 hour classes a day in the morning live, so that we stream it every day and people can watch what we do at the gym and see how we get it done.
Yeah, I think it'd be really beneficial because, it blows people's minds. And it's quite overwhelming for people for the first few weeks that they come here. It's sort of like, oh my God, it's sort of like trying to fit in with a colony of ants who have a systemized approach to everything. And we have dialed it down to the smallest detail with how we stack weights around the gym and things like that, you know. So it's hard to compete with, but
it's hard to compete with as well, because everything that we do in the gym has Yanni not doing any of it, but sitting on the outside watching it and thinking of ways to make it more efficient. So he always comes in every month or two and fucks with Richard and my mojo and says, no, we can make it more efficient. We're going to do it this way. And we're like, fuck. All right.
Yeah, that's right.
Do it again.
I don't do any of the training anymore. I just watch and see how we can improve it. And it's a constant process. But, hey, that's what makes us special.
Yep. And so Andy Lawson's saying definitely difficult keeping the workout timing so strict at home around family life, given I have to do it in the house. And look, man, that is a challenge that you are always going to suffer with. When I was working out at home, I actually did one of the worst injuries that I've ever had in my body. And the reason, there were factors that came into it, but one of the biggest factors that I can put my thumb on, which I would never normally do, is that I was training in my garage and I allowed myself to get distracted by my son, and I went upstairs and played with him for probably about 20 minutes and went from that back to doing a max effort set in a workout that I'd previously done a perfect warm-up for and kept my pace so my heart was elevated and my body was warm. And so I basically completely cooled down and then went back in and just tried to go, all right, max effort, let's go. And it really messed me up. So I relate to that. It's very hard to keep yourself on track. So anyone that's doing any of our stuff at home, hats off to you for getting anything done, really. You know, if you're getting anything done, then you're kicking goals.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
100%.
Greg Gillespie, one of our legends, one of my students in the Morning and Tribe Legends, is saying, quote, and we're not here to fuck spiders. That's what I say all the time in my classes when anybody's messing around.
I'd love to hear Greg just give a little bit of feedback on what his experience was like when he first experienced the UMS at Unity Gym, because he is a member who does the workouts in the morning.
Yeah. Greg, let us know what was it like for you,
what was your first impression,
and what's your experience about the efficiency model that we have?
Because I started training here before I started working here, and I remember getting really frustrated that it was moving on so fast, because you kind of you get a bit of a taste of something, you're like, oh, I want to explore more of that, and then you get told to move on, you're like, damn it. Well, I was just kind of getting into that, but then you start to see the power in that it. You do a little bit of it every single day. Every time you turn up, you're forced to get through that. Whereas when you train on your own, it's so easy to just be like, I've run out of time for stretching or flexibility.
I've got a couple of hacks. There's a word that I learned from Ben Pakulski. Well, I actually learned it from Yanni, who learned it from Ben Pakulski around training, which is this concept of training with intention, which means that when you get into your workout, you have an intention for what you want to do. You set your intent and you focus your mind. The way Ben calls it is he adopts a certain avatar, like a certain persona. And he talks about the avatar that he has when he's training is very, very different to the avatar that he adopts when he's with his family. Like if he was the guy that he is when he's training, when he's with his family, his family wouldn't want to spend time with him because he's so intense. And you have to do that when you go into the gym. I actually had this, I gave this sort of pep talk to some of our newest members this morning. I talked to them about this idea that there's an etiquette that goes on in the world, that in society, that is very, very different to the etiquette in a gym. Like if we were having a conversation and halfway through you talking, I turned my back on you and nodded and went, yeah, and went over and did something and then came back to the conversation. If you were in the office, that's very rude, and people are aware of that and they maintain eye contact, and there's all these things that you do to show somebody that you're engaged. But in the gym, if you don't adopt this, and at home or whatever, if you don't adopt this understanding that there's a different etiquette, there's an etiquette that is my workout and what I get done in this gym comes before politeness, without being rude. You don't just tell someone to get the fuck out of the way or whatever. But if you don't learn to adopt that, you don't get as much done and you just waste your time. You mess around. And a real hack that I would say for people, if you're training at home, one of the first things that I would do, unless you need to look at your phone to review the workouts that we're doing, I would not open your phone during your workout. That is one of the, I get caught doing it myself. I look at Instagram or Facebook when I'm in my workout, and it's one of the biggest time wasters. Kills you. Unless you're using your phone to measure your success. That's what I'm saying. Tool. If it's a way of, if you're using it as a tool, but keep social media. I always like a shiver goes down my spine whenever I hear that Rad's done a recture. I don't call him a lecture, I call him a rectra. Because he's very full on, and new people quite often find it a little bit intimidating. Rad during the classes. So Tim Hughes is saying, I agree with Yanni, and Rad doing the at-home workouts has forced me to keep moving through the workout. Strength, flexibility, cardio, then mobility, and not miss a beat. Thanks, guys. You're welcome, brother. Great to hear that you're still enjoying those. Lee Clements is saying, foundation's taking up about 1.5 hours plus the warm-up. Yeah, pretty normally. It's normal, and people sometimes say to us, "Oh, I don't have that much time to train. What should I do?" Really simple. Just cut off some of the C's or D exercises. Focus on the primaries. Focus on anything's better than nothing. And one of the worst things you can do for yourself is do a workout that causes you stress and anxiety because you're not getting it all done. And it's all about, like, the workouts are written in a hierarchy of needs order, meaning the primary lifts are always the most important ones. Get those done if you don't have time to do it.
The thing that I say about that, first of all, before you start cutting exercises, is really evaluate how on the money you are with your rest intervals.
Yep.
Because a lot of people blow out rest intervals, and I'm always shocked when I follow a protocol, very specific protocol, like the my super accumulation program, where it's very specific, because rest intervals is all about, it's a variable that you play with that can give you accumulative fatigue or allow you to fully recover. And those two responses have a very different adaptation process.
Yep.
And so whenever I follow the super accumulation program, which is a very strict 1 minute 40-second rest interval, and that is quite a long rest interval when you're considering bodybuilding workouts. It feels very fast, because I get used to, when I'm training for maximal strength, hanging around for 5 minutes between a set, Yep. Yeah.
So, Tom's saying would love to see the live classes. That's awesome.
I think it'd be a great idea. Rad's stopped me from doing it in the past because he's afraid that some of our members don't want to be filmed, but it's literally like 2.
That's not why I stopped it.
Oh, well, anyway.
We don't have a videographer. That's why I stopped it. Cool. Great discussion, guys. I hope you got something out of it.
And with we talked a bit about Andra from the online coaching and sort of went into the real details of his specific case. So hopefully that was still gave everyone a bit of good information. But I think it was a good example of as well what we do on our Friday online coaching calls, the online coaching group. With this group, we kind of try and keep things a bit more generalized, but that was a bit of a taste of, really working on
the online coaching calls that our UMS online coaching members get. We literally deconstruct whatever videos you post and give specific coaching advice for you, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. Sydney, Australia time.
One more thing I do want to announce, which is very, very exciting. I said it in the email yesterday. I gave a little bit of a hint away. Rad and Richard finished the first big day of shooting for a brand new program, and it is going to require you to own the Flexibility Masterclass version 1.
Phase 1.
Phase 1.
Because it is phase 2.
Because it's phase 2, and it is not recommended that you endeavour on phase 2 without achieving a high level of competency in phase 1. And so, we're gonna be building up to this. It's not releasing this week. It's going to be releasing next Friday. But this Friday, I'll give you a hint, or I'll drop the hammer on it already. We're going to be doing a flash sale on the Phase 1 Flexibility Masterclass, which is a brilliant flexibility program. It's the program that a couple of people have posted about this week in the group that they've got great results with. So guys, get yourself ready. Whatever you have to do, talk to your wife, talk to your children, talk to whoever, the boss at home who handles the wallet.
The wife.
Yes. Just put $49 aside, because this is going to be your opportunity, your last opportunity to get that. And I wouldn't usually say it beforehand, but it's really important that people have got that first program before they go into phase 2. And as usual, when we launch a new program next Friday, it will be at a massive discount, and then it won't be discounted again for half a year or so. So get yourself ready.
Greg Gillespie jumped on and said, at first I found it almost impossible to keep up with the UMS workouts in Unity Gym, but now I can get through everything. And that's just awesome, Greg, because that's what it's all about. When you come in and you learn this efficiency model for the first time, we get so much done. And we actually made a conscious choice about this as a group of trainers. We said, do we want to slow the class down for the beginners so that they don't feel overwhelmed? And we said no, because that would be really disrespectful to our senior members who have been with us for ages. And we said, rather, we will keep the class at the pace that suits the seniors, and we'll just explain to the beginners that they're not going to get as much done and they need to learn it. And it works really, really well, because it shows people when they come here that we're serious, and people can look around and see what they can achieve. And it's working well.
Mate, the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, so thanks, Greg. Thanks for chiming in.
Phenomenal stuff. Yeah.
All right, team, we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be wrapping up this week talking about flexibility training, talking about should you deload from stretching the same way that you deload from weights. Ooh, hot topic.
Hot topic. See you tomorrow.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.